Team 12 of 52 teams of 8 rival wisdoms. Help make America wiser and kinder with antique quotes that have passed the test of time to make humanity great with words of wisdom, to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. Give your kids a competitive edge with faster reading skills with timed practice videos, alpha cipher puzzles to learn letters, words and phrases, and repetitive easy math to help us all grow wiser and kinder. Team quote 12.1. A wise man will make more opportunities than he finds. Francis Bacon 1561–1626. This insight from Francis Bacon, the English philosopher and statesman, aligns with his empirical pragmatic approach to life and knowledge. As someone who helped establish the scientific method and served as Lord Chancellor of England, Bacon understood firsthand the importance of actively creating rather than passively waiting for opportunities. What makes this observation particularly powerful is how it redefines wisdom. Rather than seeing wisdom as merely the ability to recognize or take advantage of existing opportunities, Bacon suggests that true wisdom involves the creativity and initiative to generate new possibilities. It's an active rather than passive definition of wisdom. The phrase "make more opportunities" is especially striking. It suggests that opportunities aren't just found by chance, but can be actively constructed through insight, effort, and strategic thinking. This challenges the common notion that success is mainly about luck, or being in the right place at the right time. There's also an implicit message about self-reliance here. By emphasizing the creation of opportunities, rather than simply finding them, Bacon suggests that we shouldn't limit ourselves to the obvious paths that present themselves. Instead, we should use our intelligence and creativity to forge new paths. This idea remains remarkably relevant today, particularly in an era of rapid change and innovation. It reminds us that success often comes not from waiting for perfect conditions or obvious opportunities, but from actively shaping circumstances to create new possibilities. Team quote 12.2. A day wasted on others is not wasted on oneself. Charles Dickens 1812–1870. This compassionate quote from Charles Dickens reflects both his personal philosophy and the humanitarian themes that run through his novels. As someone who used his writing to advocate for social reform and highlight the plight of the poor in Victorian England, Dickens understood the profound value of serving others. What makes this observation particularly meaningful is how it challenges the conventional notion of what constitutes a wasted day. Dickens suggests that time spent helping others, which might appear unproductive in a strictly personal sense, actually enriches the giver in deeper, more meaningful ways. The quote's power lies in its paradox. What seems like a waste of time when viewed through the lens of personal productivity or advancement is actually an investment in one's own character and humanity. This aligns with Dickens' portrayal of characters like Ebenezer Scrooge, who discovers that his self-focused life has been the truly wasted one. There's also a subtle critique here of the Victorian emphasis on self-improvement and productivity. By redefining what constitutes a well-spent day, Dickens challenges the notion that personal advancement should be our primary measure of time well spent. This message remains strikingly relevant today, particularly in our achievement-oriented culture that often measures worth in terms of productivity. It reminds us that some of our most valuable contributions might not show up on any resume or list of accomplishments, but rather in the lives we've touched and the help we've given to others. Team quote 12.3. Know yourself to improve yourself. Auguste Comte 1798–1857. This quote from Auguste Comte, the French philosopher who founded the discipline of positivism and sociology, captures a fundamental principle of personal growth. As someone who sought to understand human society through systematic observation, Comte recognized that self-improvement must begin with self-awareness. What makes this insight particularly powerful is its recognition of the essential connection between self-knowledge and self-improvement. You can't effectively change what you don't understand. The quote suggests that meaningful personal development isn't just about setting goals or following prescribed paths, but must be grounded in honest self-examination. There's a scientific quality to this approach that reflects Comte's broader philosophical work. Just as he believed society could be studied and improved through careful observation and analysis, he suggests that personal development requires a similar systematic understanding of oneself. The simplicity of the statement belies its challenging nature. True self-knowledge is often difficult to achieve. It requires us to face our weaknesses, acknowledge our biases, and examine our motivations honestly. Yet Comte suggests this potentially uncomfortable process is the necessary foundation for genuine self-improvement. This idea remains deeply relevant today, particularly in an era of quick-fix solutions and external metrics of success. It reminds us that lasting personal growth must be built on the foundation of genuine self-understanding. Team quote 12.4. It is best to avoid the beginnings of evil. Henry David Thoreau 1817–1862. This quote from Thoreau reflects his thoughtful understanding of how small compromises can lead to larger moral failures. As someone who advocated for civil disobedience and living according to one's principles, Thoreau recognized the importance of being vigilant against the first steps toward ethical compromise. What makes this observation particularly insightful is its focus on beginnings. Thoreau suggests that evil rarely arrives fully formed, but rather starts with small concessions or seemingly minor moral compromises. By the time a major ethical breach is obvious, its foundations may have already been laid through numerous smaller choices. The word avoid is significant here. Thoreau isn't talking about fighting evil once it's established, but rather about preventing it from taking root in the first place. This aligns with his philosophy of conscious living and careful consideration of one's choices and actions. There's also practical wisdom in this approach. Just as a small fire is easier to extinguish than a large one, small ethical compromises are easier to resist at their onset than after they've become established patterns of behavior. This applies equally to personal conduct and broader social issues. The relevance of this insight endures today, reminding us to be mindful of small decisions that might seem insignificant, but could lead down problematic paths. It's a call for ethical vigilance and careful consideration of the potential consequences of our choices, even when they might seem minor in the moment. Team quote 12.5. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. Elizabeth Stanton 1815–1902. This powerful quote from Elizabeth Cady Stanton deliberately echoes and expands upon the Declaration of Independence, making a crucial addition to include women in its fundamental assertion of human equality. As a leading figure in the women's rights movement, Stanton used this language in the Declaration of Sentiments, presented at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. What makes this revision particularly significant is how it exposed the limitations of the original Declaration's concept of equality. By using such familiar, revered language and explicitly adding in women, Stanton highlighted both the document's promise and its failure to extend that promise to all people. The phrase self-evident takes on new meaning in Stanton's version. She's asserting that women's equality is just as obvious and fundamental as the truths the Founding Fathers claimed were self-evident. Yet society had failed to recognize this apparent truth. There's both power and irony in using the establishment's own language to challenge its inconsistencies. The quote comes from a larger document that deliberately paralleled the structure and style of the Declaration of Independence, transforming a revered patriarchal text into a foundational document for women's rights. This strategic choice helped legitimize the women's rights movement by connecting it to America's own revolutionary traditions. Stanton's words continue to resonate today as we grapple with questions of genuine equality and inclusion. They remind us that expanding the circle of human rights often requires us to challenge and reframe even our most cherished principles and documents. Team quote 12.6. I destroy my enemies when I make them my friends. Abraham Lincoln 1806–1865. This profound quote from Lincoln reveals his deep understanding of human nature and conflict resolution. As a president who led the nation through its bloodiest war, while maintaining a vision of eventual reconciliation, Lincoln recognized that transforming enemies into allies was more powerful than defeating them through force alone. What makes this insight particularly powerful is its paradoxical nature. The idea that the best way to destroy an enemy is not through their elimination, but through their transformation into a friend. It reflects Lincoln's broader vision for healing the nation after the Civil War, as expressed in his second inaugural addresses call for malice toward none, with charity for all. The word make is significant here. It implies active effort and intention. Lincoln isn't suggesting that enemies naturally become friends, but rather that this transformation requires deliberate work and engagement. This aligns with his personal practice of trying to understand and connect with political opponents, rather than simply confronting them. There's also practical wisdom here about the nature of conflict resolution. When you defeat an enemy through force, you may create resentment that leads to future conflicts. But when you transform an enemy into a friend, you've not only ended the current conflict, but prevented future ones. This message remains remarkably relevant today in both personal and political contexts. It suggests that true victory often lies not in overpowering opposition, but in finding ways to transform adversarial relationships into collaborative ones. Team quote 12.7. Always forgive your enemies, nothing annoys them so much. Oscar Wilde 1854 to 1900. This quote perfectly captures Oscar Wilde's signature wit and his ability to wrap wisdom in humor. As a master of paradox and irony, Wilde takes the noble concept of forgiveness and gives it a deliciously mischievous twist. What makes this observation particularly clever is how it presents forgiveness not as a moral virtue, but as a subtle form of revenge. The irony is that by forgiving your enemies, supposedly the most selfless of acts, you're actually finding a way to frustrate them more effectively than through anger or retaliation. There's a deeper truth hidden beneath the humor. Wilde recognizes that enemies often want to provoke a reaction, to know they've caused pain or anger. By responding with forgiveness instead, you deny them this satisfaction, while maintaining your own peace of mind. It's a form of psychological judo that turns their negative energy back on themselves. The quote also reflects Wilde's own experiences with social conflict and persecution. As someone who faced considerable hostility in his life, particularly during his later years, he understood the power of maintaining grace under fire. While delivered with Wilde's characteristic wit, this insight offers genuinely useful advice about handling animosity. It suggests that the best response to enmity might not be escalation or retaliation, but rather a kind of elegant detachment that leaves your opponents off balance, all while preserving your own tranquility. Team quote 12.8. Justice delayed is justice denied. William E. Gladstone 1809 to 1898. This powerful quote from William Gladstone, who served as British Prime Minister 4 times, cuts to the heart of how justice must function to be meaningful. As a leader who championed various reform movements, Gladstone understood that the timing of justice is as crucial as justice itself. What makes this observation particularly incisive is how it equates delay with denial. Gladstone suggests that justice delivered too late effectively becomes injustice, no matter how correct the eventual outcome might be. The quote recognizes that people suffering from injustice need relief in the present, not just promises for the future. The simplicity of the statement, just 5 words, belies its profound implications for legal and social systems. It challenges the notion that careful deliberation should always take precedence over swift action. While due process is important, Gladstone suggests that excessive delay can itself become a form of injustice. This principle remains strikingly relevant today, especially regarding issues of bail reform, lengthy pretrial detentions, overcrowded court systems, and delayed investigations. It reminds us that justice systems must not only reach the right conclusions, but must do so in a timely manner to truly serve their purpose. The quote also speaks to broader social justice movements, suggesting that calls to wait, or be patient, in the face of injustice can themselves perpetuate that injustice. It's a reminder that the timeline of justice matters as much as its eventual outcome. Free Easy Extra Advantage Math, Spelling and Reading Workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free Easy Math Wisdom Workbooks with Octa Repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free Easy Alpha Cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our Learning to Spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms, repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms, like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence, sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think, therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages, promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults, you can clothe a whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.